extremely busy weekend in the Valley. Kyler Murray watches his old head coach go to the conference championship game. However, there was something this weekend that could help spark a real Cardinals rebuild and a blueprint for how that should be done. And lastly, the savior Nick Richards made his debut for the Phoenix Suns. Let's talk about it all next.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Woo. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like calluses. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day. You're part of your morning on this beautiful Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 20th, 6 a.m. We are back at it. Just another reminder, guys, we will be streaming from 6 a.m. to around 6:30 Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the Ben Garcia Show. I understand there's probably going to be a lot of people live in the chat this morning. I got my guy Michael in here as well with me this morning. People probably taking the morning off, sleeping in, as many of you, I assume, do have the day off. But either way, I thought about taking the day off as well. But it was just too much stuff going on in the sports world to take a day off. And before I jump really quickly into it, don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. You guys have been doing that a lot recently, and it has been tremendous to see the growth on there as well. But let's start here. Last week was a really good weekend for Kyler Murray. And I came on here, and I had said it was a really good weekend for Kyler. Because Jordan Love lost, Justin Herbert lost. You had these quarterbacks that were perceived as better than Kyler, and it wasn't necessarily close. Well, Jordan Love's got one playoff win, and Justin Herbert still doesn't have one. And, Lamar Jackson, 3-5 in the playoffs now, did not really show up. An interception last night, a fumble. I know a lot of people like to go after Mark Andrews, but we saw last night Lamar can't have those interceptions, can't have those fumbles in these games. And so last week was a really good weekend for Kyler because this whole anti-Kyler crowd a lot of it was basically piggybacking off the fact that he doesn't have a playoff win. He hasn't been in the playoffs since his third season in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, and it wasn't fair to him. And he can't carry a team. Just like how last weekend was a really good weekend for Kyler and his narrative, this weekend was a horrible weekend for Kyler. For people like me who have been very pro Kyler Murray, even having to watch Kliff Kingsbury go to the NFC Conference Championship game, even for myself, that was tough. That was really tough. Kyler, having to watch Kliff Kingsbury emphatically dominate the Detroit Lions with nearly 50 points. Seriously, that is otherworldly stuff. Meanwhile, Kyler's sitting at home. And before I dive even deeper to the Kliff Kingsbury side of things, this is why I'm so hard on Kyler Murray. I have been a Kyler Murray stan at times and hardcore believer of him. But I got to be fair, and I've got to be honest, it was not a good look for Kyler this weekend. Because for Cardinals fans who have been emphatically defending Kyler, me being one of them for a really long time, you look at Jaden Daniels, and this is why I've been so hypercritical of Kyler. Because if you need everything to be perfect, That's a you problem. Jaden Daniels has Terry McLaurin, old man Zach Ertz, old man Austin Eckler, who there was video spiraling of him 2 years ago or last year of how slow he looked running the football. A misfit cast of weapons, and he destroys the Lions. Because the difference between Jaden Daniels and Kyler Murray, even just right now, when Kyler will be entering year 7 next year, and Jaden Daniels is in year 1, it's the Grand Canyon. It's why when fans blame the OC and try to take this victory lap of, well, listen, Kyler would be a lot better if we didn't have the OC here. Well, Jaden Daniels has no weapons outside of Terry McLaurin. You did not think that Zach Ertz was this good. Or Austin Eckler. He just wins. Because the difference between an A-plus quarterback and a B-minus quarterback in Kyler is they are the great eraser. And it's really not fair because it's tough for Kyler. Jaden Daniels put the Detroit Lions to bed and never skipped a beat offensively. Never once. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. And we can't have that. It's why when you make excuses for Kyler, well, his OC's not very good. His offensive line, he didn't have his right tackle towards the end of the year. Paris Johnson Jr. didn't play in the final game of the season. It's, okay, how many things do you need to be perfect? If you're an NFL quarterback and you need everything to be perfect around you for you to succeed, you become Brock Purdy. And when you're paying Brock Purdy $55 million a year, thankfully you're only paying Kyler $45, things start to become very hard for you to win. And Jaden Daniels doesn't make those excuses, and he easily could. If the Lions destroyed the Washington Commanders on Saturday, let's just say they annihilated them, you're not holding that against Jaden Daniels. You're like, wow, what a really successful season. This guy made it all the way to the divisional round, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. Sky's the limit. And that would have been a perfect excuse. But with a misfit cast of an offensive line, a misfit cast of weapons, a defense that, as the kids say, is mid, doesn't matter. He still destroyed the Detroit Lions. He throttled them offensively. Sam Darnold looked to be perceived as a potential MVP. He couldn't do that against this Lions defense. Jaden Daniels on the road in the divisional playoffs, no big deal. Hold your quarterback accountable. Stop doing this flip-flop of excuses for a quarterback like Kyler. And I love Kyler, and I hope he succeeds. But if you need everything perfect around you, it's a you issue. It ain't a team issue. And Jaden Daniels would kill for Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. and James Conner and Paris Johnson Jr. If he had those weapons, they would be perceived as the Super Bowl favorites right now. That's how good he's playing the quarterback position. So, stop making excuses for Kyler. It ain't the OC. Because the OC or the, head coach that we ran out of town in Kliff Kingsbury looks pretty freaking creative. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. Just like how Kyler Murray had a great weekend last weekend. This weekend was the complete and total opposite. Just can't have that happen. All right. Let's talk about Kliff. I'm just like you. Except I don't hate admitting I was wrong. But when I have to come on here and say I was wrong, it does kind of hurt my credibility at least a little bit, which is a little annoying. But I believe authenticity is what sells. Kliff Kingsbury, I don't even buy into this idea if he was a head coach again, that he wouldn't succeed. We blamed Kliff. I blamed Kliff I blamed Keim, and I still blame Keim. I think he was an incompetent GM, and I think his draft picks solely show that. But Kliff Kingsbury, as a head coach, I think I could buy again after seeing his quote a couple weeks ago, basically saying I would tighten the screws down at the start and then loosen them up a little bit, because players love Kliff. He's perceived as a really nice guy, and it really sucks for him because he looked to be, at this point, a really good play caller. But the issue with Kliff is he was a beta male. He really was with the Arizona Cardinals. I was on those training camp sidelines, guys. Phone breaks and snack breaks at training camp, letting guys off way too easy, letting Kyler curse him out on Thursday Night Football when you probably should have benched him when that happened. But those are all things that a rookie head coach, just doesn't learn. And so now this idea that Kliff could be a little bit more of a hard ass and go be a head coach, I kind of do buy it a little bit. Now, I don't know if he will because he's so scarred from taking the Cardinals job. But Kliff Kingsbury, call what it is. Terrific play caller. Went into Arizona, State Farm Stadium, annihilated the Cardinals. Went and played the Lions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in back-to-back weeks. Beat them. And he's going to be in the conference championship game. And it sucks to admit, but it does kind of feel like we scapegoated Kliff Kingsbury just a little bit. Now, he was never going to work here because his idea and way of coaching was not going to fit at that time. He was far too nice. He was a beta male of a head coach. Maybe not anymore. But now with Kliff Kingsbury's experience as the Cardinals head coach, his experience being under Lincoln Riley, I do think he could potentially succeed as a head coach, although I don't think he'll take one of those jobs anytime soon because having Jaden Daniels as your quarterback sounds pretty fun. So, really tough feeling like you ran the wrong guy out of town, and Kliff Kingsbury is succeeding without Kyler, and there were reports that he liked having Colt McCoy over Kyler Murray run the offense because it was just a little bit more fluid. And all these things are really starting to come to fruition for not just Kyler, but Kliff as well. Kyler still has things that he needs to vindicate, and Kliff Kingsbury feels really vindicated. So not only did Kyler Murray have a bad weekend, but I had a really bad weekend. I was wrong about Jaden Daniels. I said I had zero belief in Jaden Daniels before he got drafted last year. It's okay. I was wrong. I'm right about a lot of things. I was wrong on that. He's tremendous. Kliff Kingsbury, I called him a buffoon. Clearly, that's not true. Just a different guy. And he's going to the conference championship game. And potentially when I'm in New Orleans in a couple of weeks at the Super Bowl, at Radio Row, mingling, I might be seeing Commanders things plastered everywhere. And then it'll really get real for me. So I was emphatically wrong about Jaden Daniels, Kliff, and potentially even Kyler Murray really soon, who had a really bad weekend. Just a really, really bad weekend. All right. There was something you can take from this weekend, though. And before I jump really into it, back to Constitution. Appreciate him being in the chat. I believe Michael Evans is in here as well. On a little bit of a roll this morning, so it's kind of hard for me to read that chat, especially what was a really busy weekend of football. But, of course, if you send the super chats, of course, I will find time to read those as well. But let's talk about this. The Cardinals obviously pulled back this year. And to the point where I know people will say, well, listen, at the beginning of the year, if I told you they would go 8-9, you would have taken it. And of course, that is true, but that is also extremely inauthentic and not exactly true. Because if you told me at the beginning of the year with a blind eye, if I told you they'd be 8-9, you would take it. Of course, I would say yes. But the season was a failure because you also forget to add the fact that this team was 6-4 through 11 weeks and just crapped the bed, wet themselves. Can't have that. This team should be in the playoffs right now. Now, I don't know if they should be in the conference championship game, but I should have seen them play over the past 2 weekends, at least one of those 2 weekends. So, it's tough, man. But there was a clear blueprint on what the Arizona Cardinals have to be. And as you see in the lower third here, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Arizona Cardinals have to look at exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles have done, especially with that being one Jalen Hurts, and really assess what they need to be as a team. And I tweeted this as well. The Arizona Cardinals have to follow exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles do. Get your quarterback on what is a pretty affordable contract, and with the way they structure Jalen Hurts, $50 million a year actually doesn't look that bad because it was so front-loaded with the signing bonus and with all that money that the cap hit actually isn't that bad. It's when I tell people that the salary cap is just a figment of your imagination. It is true. You can convert things into signing bonuses. It's how much does your owner want to win? So the Philadelphia Eagles, you look at their quarterback, he wasn't very good. Again, 15 for 20, 128 yards. Now he was sacked 7 times in this game, passer rating of 91, QBR of 49. But the Arizona Cardinals have to follow what the Philadelphia Eagles do. Stop asking your quarterback to do so much. Lean into what he does well, run the football, and being accurate and precise. Even with Kyler Murray's deep ball, he could be even better than that, than one Jalen Hurts is. You have to fill up the holes in your offensive line, fix the guards, fix the right tackle. You have to have superb line play. You have to have a running back, James Conner, or who knows, maybe someone you draft, Cam Scattaboo is a name, to help carry this offensive load and taking a real load off of Kyler Murray. And you have to stack the offense, as well as establish a culture of physicality. The Arizona Cardinals have a lot of the weapons and a lot of the, personnel that the Eagles have, and it's what they need to follow. It is much easier said than done. But Jalen Hurts doesn't look like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL over the past 6 weeks. He just doesn't look that great. Now, he was injured, coming back from concussion, but if you told me the Washington Commanders won next week, I wouldn't be that surprised because the better quarterback right now, and it's not necessarily close, is Jaden Daniels. But you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have done to this point to get back here, and the Cardinals have to follow that blueprint. It was showed this weekend what the Arizona Cardinals have to do to get back to the playoffs and get back to potential Super Bowl caliber. You got to fix the offensive line, especially that right tackle. You've got to draft exceptionally well, especially defensively. I'm talking about Cooper DeJean, as well as other draft picks for the Eagles defensively. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, guys like that, Nakobe Dean. Those are all players the Eagles have drafted. You have to do that defensively. You have to get better on the offensive line, fix the right tackle. You got to get a great running back. Maybe you draft one, or you believe in James Conner to do that for longer past this year to carry that offense, take a load off of Kyler, get good wide receivers, and you have those. But you need to take a lot of pressure off of Kyler because it is clear what he is. He's not a top 5 guy. He's not a top 8 guy. He's a fringe, at this point, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Where if you lean into what he does well, accurate, precise, run the football, use his legs, stack the offense, keep him on a good contract, fix the offensive line, draft well defensively, make smart free agency decisions, that is what you have to do. Lean on the run game. That's the blueprint for the Cardinals. Now, it is much easier said than done, but you look at what Jalen Hurts did this weekend. 15 for 20, 128 yards. There were 2 quarterbacks on the field this weekend between Matthew Stafford and Jalen Hurts. And one looked like a supremely talented quarterback that has won a Super Bowl before. And one looks like he's still trying to get back to his Super Bowl form a few years ago when he played Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So it is very clear what the Cardinals have to be. And you have a head coach who came from that regime and has to try to figure out a way to replicate that regime. And it's not like the Eagles have this superbly talented offensive coordinator. They don't. People didn't like Kellen Moore for years. He's gotten better, but he's not Ben Johnson. He's not Kyle Shanahan. He's not Kliff Kingsbury as a play caller. So it was very clear, and it hit the Cardinals in the face this weekend what they have to be. They have to be the Philadelphia Eagles of the West Coast. You got to be physical, strong, lean on the run, fix the offensive line, draft well defensively. Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, Nakobe Dean. Listen, it's not easy, and I don't even know if they can replicate it, but that's what they have to be. Because they don't have a quarterback good enough to carry them. And it's not going to change. They don't have that guy. It's year 7. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's Jalen Hurts. You can get to a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. You can nearly win the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. We saw Brock Purdy nearly win one. So it's possible. It's just a lot of extra hoops that you have to jump through if you're Kyler and if you're the Arizona Cardinals. But I thought what you saw this weekend, Saquon Barkley running the football, A.J. Brown timely first down receptions in that first quarter, the defense playing well for most of that game. Now, they nearly gave it up, but that's what you have to do. And I'd rather have Jonathan Gannon as a head coach than Nick Sirianni. I just would. I like the stability and level-headedness of that being one Jonathan Gannon over Nick Sirianni, but it was tough. It was tough to see because that is exactly what you have to be for the Cardinals. Be the Philadelphia Eagles of the West Coast. Easily said, not easily replicated. But I thought it was at least good that you saw a blueprint of what you needed to be. All right. Let's talk about what exactly a lot of Suns fans got excited about over the weekend. I didn't have a great weekend, and I explained that with the Arizona Cardinals thing. I didn't have a great weekend in terms of sports opinions. My personal weekend was fine, but I was wrong about Kliff Kingsbury. I was wrong about Jaden Daniels. This is just one of those ones where maybe I have to admit I was wrong. Now listen, it was one game for that being Nick Richards. But I got to be honest. He looked really good. And I know people will say that and look at the opponent and say the Pistons. Pistons were actually better than the Phoenix Suns going into that game. But seeing Nick Richards going up against Isaiah Stewart and company for the Pistons, Jalen Duran, 21 points, 11 boards, a double-double, defensively better with rotations. He just made everything go a lot smoother. I made fun of Suns fans, and I still do kind of believe this at least a little bit, that you didn't watch Charlotte Hornets football, and I can't really buy into that you did. I'm sorry, Charlotte Hornets basketball, and I can't really buy that you did. But oftentimes a lot of them would tell me they need Nick Richards. They need this guy. And I said, well, guys, Nick Richards is this backup big man on a really bad Hornets team. How good could he be? And I really held firm on that opinion. I thought he'd be an upgrade, but I didn't think he'd be this good right away. The only thing I can attest it to or relate it to is I didn't think the Phoenix Suns front court was this bad. Like, I thought it was bad. I thought it was the worst in the NBA. I am quoted saying that on Locked On Suns. I'm quoted saying that on numerous other things. But I got to be fair. It might even been worse than I thought. Because Nick Richards' ability to finish around the rim, basically just wide open around the basket, I mean, that's what you had to see. Finishing, rolling to the rim. Defensively, rotations looked better defensively because players weren't compensating for Mason Plumlee's inability to roll over to the weak side and block a shot. So, Nick Richards, I said it was more about raising the floor for this team, not raising the ceiling. Jimmy Butler is a raising the ceiling ad for the Suns. He's a star player. I still think defensively he can be pretty good. He adds a different mindset to this team, which I think this team still is lacking. A culture that Jimmy Butler can help with this team. But Nick Richards might have really showed just how bad this Suns front court truly is. Nurkic has never had a game where he was that dominant, not just on the boards, but around the rim. And seeing Nick Richards being able to do that for this team could change everything. It really could. Now, it's hard for me to say championship contender because I've been burned so many times saying that. But could this team, with 41 games left, half a season, somehow sneak into the playoffs? Maybe go get a Butler, and things do actually change for this team. I don't know. It feels a little bit like a pipe dream, but it doesn't feel emphatically impossible. But it's fair. It is a fair notion to, at this point, just be excited about what Nick Richards brings to this team, which is stability to the offensive rotation, finishing around the rim, and I did not expect him to immediately average a double-double. Maybe because of the gravity of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, what he's able to do around the rim. But the Suns play at 1:30 today. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Early start time. Really early start time. And if they win that game, I won't be completely floored. And it was kind of what I was saying on Locked On Suns a couple of days ago. A few days ago, I would have said there's no chance they win that game on Monday. But what Nick Richards gives is hope. Because of the gravity of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, they're just going to attract more players on them, defensively speaking. And with Devin Booker being on a real heater, Nick Richards has the ability to be the young front court guy, converting and ones, finishing around the rim, being fast on rotations, blocking shots, and being a true lob threat. He could change a lot about this Suns team. Championship contender? I'm not so sure about that. But make them a true top 4 seed, top 5 seed in the West? You could talk me into that after what I saw from Nick Richards. 21 points, 10 boards, a difference maker on the glass. Offensively, the offensive rebounds were not as bad anymore. And for a big team on the Pistons that's got Jalen Duran there, that's got Isaiah Stewart there, it was very impressive what I saw from Nick Richards. And they've got a game against the Cavs, and my whole idea is start him. Just start the guy. Just start the guy. We can't do this. You know, there was the report out there that Gambo was basically saying once he gets acclimated to the team, he will start. He's already acclimated. Start him. He's going up against Evan Mobley, Jared Allen and company today. It's a big Cavs team who's been playing really well offensively. You have to add Nick Richards to that fold. Mason Plumlee, Yusuf Nurkic, even Oso Iguodala, probably not cutting it for this team. Start Nick Richards, put him out there. We'll see how he does. But overall, through one game, I didn't expect him to be this good, and he absolutely has been. And it really makes you think if they could swing a deal for a Jimmy Butler, and then you have Nick Richards, and you have this lineup of Butler, Booker, Beal, Jones, KD, and rotations and of Nick Richards and Nurkic. Like, you have this team then of Richards, Beal, KD, Booker, Jones, and Butler, and whatever it looks like. It does make you think that the Suns are a Butler away from being a true championship contender. And that's what upgrading the front court did. And it's why I told people at the beginning of the year, I told people last year, the point guard wasn't the issue for the Suns. Sure, would they want one? Monte Morris does fine. What they have to do is get bigger, and at the wing position, get better. And at the front court position, get better. And Nick Richards does that, and potentially Jimmy Butler does that. And after some of the reports we saw over the weekend, maybe all that does come to fruition. But Nick Richards adds to this team what we haven't had, and it feels like years. Hope. And that's what today is all about. Nick Richards potentially elevating the floor of this team, potentially beating a team like the Cavs, putting this team firmly in the playoff mix. And then at that point, we'll see. Everything could change. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. Appreciate you guys making me a part of your day. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. To all of you sleeping in and going to watch this later, appreciate you guys doing that. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. And before you click away, do me a favor, hit the like button. I mean, listen, it helps me. I get up at 6 a.m., I give you some content, you give me a like, and then it just helps us all. So appreciate you guys making me a part of your day. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, I will be at the Super Bowl. I'll be there at Super Bowl week. Let me know what any content you want to see of New Orleans. We'll see what we get up there. Maybe some good interviews. So either way, guys, I'm Benjamin Garcia. Until tomorrow, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.